Saxophonist John Coltrane was born 66 years ago today. Coltrane was one of the most accomplished and influential musicians in the history of jazz. He was also a deeply religious man who attributed his gift for music to God. Even after his death in 1967, Coltrane continued to attract fans, including a unique community in San Francisco, the congregation of St. John's African Orthodox Church. NPR's Isabel Alegria prepared this report.
O Lord, open thou our lips, and our mouth shall go forth.
It's Sunday morning, just before noon. At a small storefront church on a busy street in San Francisco, the service is just getting underway.
It's time to go to the altar and pray.
The congregation faces an altar decorated with candles, dark red chrysanthemums, and a sunflower. On the wall above the altar's white latticed frame hang two richly painted icons, one of the Virgin Mary and Child, another of Christ the Teacher. On the wall next to the altar, there's a third icon, St. John Coltrane, holding his saxophone. King, along with several church deacons, stands before his congregation. He's dressed in fuchsia-colored vestments, a gold stole draped over his slender shoulders, a soprano saxophone in his hands. Franzo King says he was raised to be a preacher, but strayed from religion in his youth. He ventured into the world, he says, seeking jazz music and a freer lifestyle. In 1965, King heard John Coltrane play and eagerly went to buy his album, A Love Supreme. But King was dismayed to find a turgidly worded religious dedication by Coltrane on the back cover.
When I saw that the God people had John Coltrane, I refused to listen to the record, to the music, for a long time. And then I finally listened to it, and I started seeing John Coltrane in a different light as more than just the heavyweight champion of the tenor saxophone. I started really seeing him as a minister of sound, and that the Lord was really using him.
King decided to dedicate himself to bringing jazz and the message he heard in it to his community. He opened a club in his home and called it the Yardbird Temple. Eventually, this became St. John's, because more than anyone else, says King, it was John Coltrane who showed him the way back to his faith.
In the church, there are certain sounds that invoke the presence of the Holy Spirit, that come from the African experience. Kind of like when I'm preaching, there's some intoning that you do that is language of the Spirit. And I think that John captured that. I mean, it's like an instant avenue to the spiritual plane,
In 1982, the congregation was invited to join the African Orthodox Church, part of the ancient Syrian Church of Antioch, which follows Catholic traditions but does not recognize the Pope. Today, St. John's service combines Coltrane's compositions, played by the church band, Ona de Ruth, and traditional prayers. Visitors fill the back of the church. A smaller number of church regulars sits towards the front. One of them, Max, steps forward holding his saxophone. His eyes are closed. A faded pink bandana is wrapped tightly around his head. The veins stand stiffly out on his neck as he plays with a startling intensity. Max does not play professionally. To hear him tell it, his music is purely an expression of religious devotion.
That which is called the Holy Spirit comes into my body and plays the music. The music comes and the music goes, and when I stop playing, when I put down my horn, it's just me again.
The musicians are joined by the church choir, led by the Sisters of Compassion, who prepare meals for the poor and run St. John's Shelter.
Glory be to God on high, and on earth peace, goodwill toward men. We praise thee, we bless thee, we worship thee, we glorify thee. We give thanks to thee for thy great glory.
Sister Mary Deborah, whose strong, deep voice rises above the choir, joined the church as a teenager in 1972. She says St. John Coltrane is the patron saint of all artists and those who strive to overcome life's obstacles.
John is the saint that we often say went to hell and came back with the keys, because in his life he suffered through many a hardship, many difficulties and things like that, and yet he didn't allow those things to defeat him.
As the service comes to a close, the smell of food cooking drifts into the room. A baby wakes up from her nap. It's hot. People sway to the music. Coltrane's name has barely been mentioned during the service, but his music has been its driving force. Bishop Franzo King says this places St. John's well within African American church tradition.
You understand the history of the music. I mean, going all the way back, to the gospel music and the chants and things that came over from Africa, that it was all a religious experience.
Bishop King says he would like to expand the church, but for now it will remain a small storefront with lace-curtained windows and a simple sign outside that says St. John's African Orthodox Church. In San Francisco, I'm Isabel Alegria reporting.